And I'm live. And I'm going to start talking right away, even though I know no one's watching, because later on there will be people that come back and watch this not live. Does that make it a dead video then? Questions. So I did not schedule this because I wasn't 100% sure what I was going to be doing as far as using the software to set this up, whether I was going to be doing that through YouTube or using Streamlabs. And YouTube, for some reason, has an argument with me about whether or not it should actually use my webcam. So Streamlabs it is. But that does mean that I am not going to be scheduling things. And it also means that I'm kind of like me. I not sure how to schedule that and actually have it go live. And I don't know. I probably should talk to my kids and get help from them, which means that I will have to admit that the 15-year-old knows a lot more about this than I do. Or the 18-year-old who wants to do streaming games, and the 15-year-old is building her a super duper deluxe gaming desktop for that, complete with bright purple, I don't know, they may flash, but LED fan things. I don't know if they flash or not, but they're bright purple. Oh boy. He had it all lit up. One side of this thing, this desktop case that he bought for her, is glass. And it's just like it's bright. It's like, I don't know, kind of lava lamp-esque, but it'll be fun and it makes her happy, and he's building it for her, which makes him happy, so I'm happy. I've given them purchased some components for them as Christmas presents, and I suspect that her birthday present, and her birthday's not till April, mind you, is also going to be parts for the computer. And of course, she's working, so she put some money into it. And he scavenged a bunch of parts and pieces for it, which is great experience for him. I honestly, the fact that the kid wants to build the computer. My friend Daryl gave him a couple of servers. He's got the servers up and running. This is all good stuff. I don't need. I don't need. Hey, there's people. Oh, awesome. All right. Yeah. No, this seems to be working, and the lights, I'm sure that she'll get used to them and they won't be distracting after a while. Ben, yes, there are books. Everything that you can see behind me on this bookshelf is Louis L'Amour novels. This is one of Sanford's bookcases, and at one point I was attempting to acquire all of Louis L'Amour's books and got really close, and then we kind of paused because he started reading mostly ebooks. So a paperback is a great size to, well, one of the skinny ones, is a great size to put into your pocket. And especially in the summertime, he wears a cargo shorts, and they shove right down in the pocket handily. And I know from personal experience, even though I never served in the military, I spent a lot of time in BDUs with Civil Air Patrol. So the cargo pocket on the side of a BDU pant is the perfect size to cram a paperback novel in, as long as it's not one of those modern, super tall paperback novels. I don't know what they were thinking with those. But anyhow, so this entire bookshelf behind me, with the exception of the bottom shelf that you cannot see, is all Louis L'Amour's. And honestly, I need to call them research material and then read all of them again. Yes, Mom, there's room still for some, and I will probably finish up with acquiring all of them. There for a while I was buying lots on eBay of just 6, 10 Louis L'Amour novels, and I wound up with some duplicates that way, and I need to go through the collection and figure out where my dupes are, probably sell those. It's interesting. I don't know about elsewhere, but here in Ohio, finding Louis L'Amours in used bookstores doesn't really work that well. So they're very popular, and like there's a bookstore not too far from me called Dollar Book Swap, and it's one of my favorite places to go because everything there is $1, and they will take and give you some credit, like 50 cents a piece, for books. So in theory, I could take a box of books in and come home with a half a box of books. And I like to go up there because they have a lot of like the popular novels. There's like shelves and shelves and shelves of some big name author novels that got a lot of push but didn't actually sell very well. But mostly what they have are used books, and it's a warehouse. It is literally a warehouse that they have built shelves in. And when you go in to the warehouse, you're walking by these huge bins. They're like apple bins full of books, just kind of stacked in there at random. And what the business is that they buy books by the pound from wherever they're being gotten rid of. For instance, when I worked as a librarian, one of my jobs at the library was I weeded the entire collection. And we had very lenient weeding criteria. Basically, if it hadn't been checked out of the library in 10 years or more, I weeded it. There was at least one book that I weeded that hadn't been checked out since before I was born, 1969. So we wound up with boxes and boxes and boxes full of books in our little storage area. Well, there was technically an emergency access stairway in the storage area that we also used for our running book sale. We made a little bit of money for the library selling books that weren't circulating or books that had been donated and we didn't think would circulate, which, by the way, is why as an author you don't just give your books to the library because they're just going to sell them. They're not going to put them in the collection. It sucks, but it is. So the fire marshal came in, I think probably the fire chief came in to check out books, but he saw that we had boxes of books stacked on the staircase and was like, nope, can't do. That is a public emergency exit point from the meeting room upstairs. Even though it's never actually used, in the case of a fire, you can't have people trying to come down here and falling over boxes of books. My boss, the alternative was to take the boxes to the town dump. And my boss would not do it. And bless his heart, I'm not unhappy with his decision, even though it made more work for me. What we wound up doing was selling to one of these services that paid by the pound for books. And it didn't make a lot of money. And I think they sent us like pre-paid shipping boxes because we got all these big uniform boxes and then I had to pack them full so they could be shipped out. But the services that buy those kinds of books, they get them in and then they go through them and they determine if anything's worth anything. So it used to be, and I haven't seen them in a while, but it used to be that you could buy books on Amazon for a penny plus $3.99 shipping. Well, shipping didn't cost back then $3.99. So the bookseller was making a couple of bucks per book, depending on how heavy the book was. And most paperbacks, if I recall correctly, because I did sell some books that way back in the day, most paperbacks were $1 or $2 to ship. So you could actually make a little bit of money selling a paperback for a penny plus shipping. Well, shipping prices changed, Amazon changed. Nowadays, I don't think you're going to see used books on Amazon for less than a couple of bucks plus shipping. I could be wrong. Like I said, I haven't looked for a while. And when I do look for like research books, they tend to be expensive. The Dollar Book Swap evolved out of, these are books that people won't buy even for a penny. on Amazon. They're either too obscure or they're so common that people don't need to buy them. That way they can pick them up for 10 cents at their local thrift store. So what this is this warehouse with tens of thousands of books, and you can go in and browse the shelves, and they're sort of organized. Like all the cookbooks are in one place, all the adult fiction is in one place. So it's kind of fun treasure hunt for books. But one of the things that I've only seen twice have I seen Louis L'Amour at Dollar Book Swap. Um, and so it's kind of this fun thing to, when I find them, I buy them. And I had at one point created a list. I printed off a chronological list of L'Amour's work and then crossed off everything that I owned. So then I had a list of what I didn't have. And like I said, I stopped buying them and I mislaid that. So I'm going to have to redo it. Although we do have an app that we're using right now for library management. It's called Bookshelf. And if the books are new enough, and that's a problem in my library, to have a barcode, it's super easy because you can scan the barcode and it adds all the metadata. Most of my books are too old to have a barcode, or the dust jacket's gone and the barcode with it, that kind of thing. So, and a lot of my books are too old to have an ISBN too. Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to cough in your ear. Um, None of this is what I'd planned to talk about today, but that's all right. So, the t-shirt I'm wearing, because it was Friday and I wore a geeky t-shirt to work. Last job, I wore geeky t-shirts all the time. This job is chilly all the time, and I need a sweater, which has got the little sweatshirt thing. But the shirt my daughters gave to me for Christmas because the family joke is that I have teeny tiny little T-Rex arms. And when I pull up to the bank ATM, I have to open the door so that I can reach the ATM and use it. So my daughters, because they love me very much, bought me this shirt. So, teeny tiny little T-Rex arms. It segues into the other thing I was going to talk about, which is the topic that we touched on last week in gardening. I am looking into building a couple of raised beds. I have some small wooden ones I bought last year. What I'm looking at this year is buying. My dad is a master scrounger. He would scrounge all kinds of things. I have not got the time nor the patience for that. So I'm going to buy cinder blocks and build raised beds with them. And I'm going to buy dirt. Actually, it's compost. I talked to a farmer today. And I can get a skid steer scoop of nice composted stuff for $15. And I'm going to need several scoops. I've got to figure out how much my truck will hold. No, Mom, they're not designed for short ladies with teeny tiny T-Rex arms. ah, okay. I think I moved the microphone. So if it continues to be a problem, Stephen, let me know, and I will adjust things. I'm looking at my condenser. All right. I'm not sure what I did. Okay. That's weird. I shouldn't have done anything. Except I was fidgeting with it, so maybe I did something to my connections. Is it better? Let's try that. And I just realized that Dragon naturally is running as well, and that might actually be It happened when I stood up. Well, I probably wiggled something loose as far as a connection. And is that better? Nope. Okay. And okay, I'm going to talk, and I am not sure. Well, hopefully that works, Stephen, because I'm not sure what I did here. So I've got I've got this condenser thing that hooks to the microphone. So it all locks together, but the condenser has some spots where it could be connected more loosely. I'm gonna set it off on my other desk here. Okay, well, I'm I will test run it. I'm just gonna fly with it today, and we'll figure it out later. Now, I was talking about reach and garden beds. So what I'm designing are beds that are approximately 4 feet wide, because that way I can come in from either side and comfortably reach them. Currently, I'm planning on doing just plain vanilla cinder blocks, 16 by 8 by 8. They're cheap. I can probably have them delivered from the local hardware store rather than having to haul those with my truck. And yeah, I do need to figure out how much my truck can hold, because I don't know how much a skid steer scoop is, which is what this guy is selling his compost as. He can load it into my truck with that, and then the boy and I with shovels can unload it into the garden. Um, and I need to make sure I don't overload the truck. I had so up in New Hampshire at the farm, I had loaded my dad's truck. Now, Dad had a little Mazda B3000, basically a Ford Ranger. So, little bitty truck, not a big truck. And he I was driving it, and we were kind of swapping vehicles back and forth. Well, one day I go to pick up railroad ties for building a raised garden bed, and I wanted a little herb bed out in front of the house. So I came home because I got there and they had more railroad ties than I was expecting, and well, I learned to scrounge from my dad. So I came home with 12 railroad ties in the back of this little truck, and I was wrestling with unloading the daggone things because they weigh over 100 pounds each. And Dad came out and said, "How many did you have on there? Look how low the truck is. You overloaded it." It hadn't crossed my mind that putting half a ton on the back of that poor little truck was a little bit too much. It made it home, poor baby. I don't want to do that to my Ford, though. um, yeah, the other thing I'm going to do is buy a roll of black plastic and plant through plastic this year, because I am lacking in time. I'm lacking in time for weeding, I'm lacking in time for watering, and the plastic will um, keep the water in and the weeds down. The other thing I can do too is I can use either PVC pipe and to arch over it and drape clear plastic over those and create a little mini high tunnel with it. Or Mom and I were talking about this. I have some cattle panels, which are welded steel wire, and mine are like 4 feet by 16 feet, which creates a nice little arch. I'm actually using one of them as an arbor and training the wisteria that was growing here before we moved in. It was growing up onto the shed and destroying the shed roof. We're going to have to rebuild part of the shed roof because it was growing up into and under the eaves and popping the shingles off. So I'm trying to keep the wisteria off the shed, but I don't mind having the wisteria if it ever blooms without the frost killing the buds, which so far hasn't happened, um, it'll be really nice to have on that little arbor. I just arched the panel and I'm growing the training the vines over it, trying to cut anything that wants to go up onto the shed now. So I think I can do some things with a couple of raised garden beds. I don't want to do too much this year because I'm going to have to put it up. But yeah, it is what it is. So I'm contemplating that and planning for that and kind of running through some pricing for it. I was busy enough at work today that I basically just flew through the day and didn't really have a lot of time to think about topics to chat on here. But then it occurred to me that I did have something that I wanted to talk about. And I have set them over here. Because on Sunday, the 31st, my latest work is going to launch, and there will be a new children's book available, One Hungry Werewolf and Other Monstrous Rhymes. And as you can see, as I angle this where I can actually have you read, I suck at this. The poetry is by Jimmy Bice Jr., and then I illustrated this. So it's, as I move the camera, doop, there we go. It is somewhat obviously a poetry book. And, there's my caricature of Jimmy as a vampire. He thought that was funny. And you can see where the book starts there, with just one hungry werewolf. And he visits a school. It's not an adding book. We go from one hungry werewolf to 12 hungry werewolves. I'm really bad at this. Maybe I'll figure it out eventually. Yeah, my policeman werewolves, those were fun to draw. And let's see here. Safely locked inside, or is he? And after the finale of the werewolf poem, when I won't spoil it for you, we go into some other poetry that's standalone stanzas with my art to bring them to life. So, and I don't know about you, but I've definitely had haunted laundry a few times. So that one was a lot of fun to do, and Jiminy and I are already working on book number 2, with plans for book number 3, and we'll see where we go from there. And that follows up, of course, my other children's book, The Cute Moose, that came out in January. And I have a novel coming out soon. I need to finish up with the editing on it, and I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with it as far as marketing goes. I did not put the effort into marketing The East Witch that I should have. I wanted it to get published, and so I didn't stop and make sure that I could get the reviews and the buzz built up. And I should have, and I didn't, and that's fine. So I'm trying to figure out, hi Juniper. I'm trying to figure out for the case of the perambulating hat rack, just how I'm going to generate some fun publicity for it, and I think I need to start buying ads, but The last time I bought Google Ads or ads anywhere, it's been over 10 years. So things have changed. And I will have to either learn that or hire somebody that knows how to do it already. But it's, um, well, maybe actually. So we were talking about food videos on one of the earlier chats, and the plan now is that Johan is going to be my videographer and video editor. I started to ask him, and he's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "You haven't? Didn't finish telling you what I wanted." And he's like, "Yes, I'll do it." so, with an enthusiastic volunteer, we we're talking about doing it. It'll have to be a weekend thing, which probably means that if we film on Saturday or Sunday, that it'll come out sometime midweek. Maybe we'll see, because he's an enthusiastic volunteer and he has done some video editing for a friend, but I'm not sure how confident he is going to be with this. But that may help with the marketing a little bit. I do the food blogging because I like cooking, um, and because feeding people makes me happy, but it doesn't necessarily tie to the writing. I have been somewhat successfully resisting the idea of putting out a cookbook, except that I think that I probably should put out a cookbook before too long. I can't necessarily do a cookbook for Eat This, Will You Read That? Because a lot of those recipes don't belong to me. They belong to the authors. The authors contributed them. A lot of the recipes I did develop, but I have to talk to a bunch of people and get permissions before I use their recipes. However, I have dozens of recipes that I've developed on the blog. The big thing about publishing a cookbook is they are expensive. And I mean, it costs me the Cute Moose, which is 60 pages long, costs me $5 just for printing cost, before anything else gets added into that. So if I do a cookbook that is, let's just say we'll triple that, we're looking at $15 just cost to me. So probably the cheapest I'm going to be able to put it out there without any kind of royalties really to me, because I don't make much in royalties on the Cute Moose. So we're probably looking at $25 for a cookbook, for a print edition cookbook. And we will see, I'm not 100% sure about a print edition cookbook in a trade paperback. If I do it in an 8.5 by 11, that will probably be better. A friend told me that the 8.5 by 11s, because Amazon doesn't have to trim them, that actually has a reduction in cost because there's no trim going on. It's just printed onto the pages, which says interesting things about their printing, but that's a whole different thing. So for the cookbook, we're probably looking at 8.5 by 11, which is a serious size for a book, and I'm not sure how well that's going to handle 180 pages. I've got some trade paperback cookbooks, and I'm going to take a look at them. I'm afraid of the binding breaking, and I don't want to put out a product that isn't going to be a quality product, which probably means that I need to look at hardback printing, which can be done through Ingram Spark or Lightning Source. I don't remember the name right now. I haven't looked into it because there's a setup fee, and KDP, Kindle Direct Print, it doesn't charge a setup fee. So most of the time for novels, I don't sell a lot of paper books unless I'm selling them in person at an event. I don't have time to do a lot of events. I'm probably going to wind up doing more events now that we're doing the children's books. They sell better at events. It is what it is. But with a cookbook, that adds something else that will also sell very well at events, farmers markets, craft fairs, oddball places where a fiction book is not going to move very much because I don't write romances yet. So the plan is to start doing, when the world opens back up from COVID, for me to start doing some in-person events to sell books, in which case having a cookbook is probably going to be a good idea. Yes, and that's a thought. I've done the PDF file that you can print for the coloring books because Amazon does not offer a way for that to work. So with the coloring books, I sell the paperback on Amazon, and it works just fine. Those are all 8.5 by 11s, and because they're black and white interior, they're fairly inexpensive to produce that way. But I also sell a PDF file on my website because most kids, at least my kids, wanted to color print pages over and over again. They'd have a favorite, or they'd be like, oh, I'm going to screw this up and I'm going to mess it up, and then I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up. So the idea of selling a printable file where you can print a page that the kid really likes over and over gives them a way to not be afraid of not being perfect the first time. Ben, I will have to look and see if there is a print-on-demand company that does spiral binding. A lot of the spiral-bound cookbooks that are out there are Vanity Press, and I am trying to avoid Vanity Press. So basically what those are is that they're used for fundraisers, a lot of those for for churches and whatnot. And they're fun. I own quite a few of them because they have some really quirky recipes on them. I bought one when I was down in Texas a while back. I bought one. My friend Dorothy and I are standing there in an antique shop looking at cookbooks because, well, we like these sorts of things. But I opened this book and there's how to make coffee. And it was basically like 4 quarts of boiling water and a cup full of coffee grounds. And it made me laugh. So I bought the book, a used book. I don't think it was more than $10, but I like those. They're fun. But usually how those are sold is you buy 100 or a couple hundred of them and then you mark them up and sell them again, which is sort of what I'm doing. Except you buy all those at once, and I have told myself from the beginning that I really didn't want to have a closet full of books or art waiting to be sold. I don't have the storage space, but it's something I will look into. The PDF file and hole punch is not a bad idea, Mom. Again, that limits my market a lot. If I do full color, I have the software to lay that out. And if I do a full color book and put it out through Amazon, and do a flowable ebook, which is what I'm doing with the children's books, the illustrated books, that actually works surprisingly well, but it won't work on a phone. They really need a larger screen, like a tablet, or the computer, in order to see it. So I think flowable ebook and color print is one option. Another option is to do all the illustrations myself and do black and white line art drawings with the recipes. And there are definitely cookbooks out there. I mean, I don't know, a lot of them. I have a lot of books um, that don't have any photo illustrations. The modern sensibility wants photo illustrations and more of a pretty book. But I could definitely do them cheaper. And if I'm going to do, and like Ben just said, to set the printout for pre-punched paper, can you even buy pre-punched paper still? I don't know. That's a good question. Hmm. Um, but if I'm setting it up so people can print it, they probably don't want color photos because most people haven't got color printers. Even I have one, but I use it for art prints, so I wouldn't want to print a whole um, cookbook on it. Not all in color. Yeah, black and white illustrations would work, and with me doing art every single day, um, that kind of illustration wouldn't take me longer than a day or two to do pen and ink style. Ah, okay, cool. I didn't realize they still. I haven't bought it in ages. Um, we had we might still have a 3-hole punch, long, narrow puncher thing. Um, yeah, pictures are pretty to look at. A lot of my blogs, well, there's a thought. If I do black and white illustrations with links to, you can go here for the recipe and process photos, because that's what I was thinking about, was the fact that I do a lot of photos that are process photos. This is what the dough looks like here. This is approximately how big I'm cutting whatever. Apricots the other day was my thing. Um, so that might work. Ha! This is a great brainstorming session. Thank you. um, yeah, now I'm really thinking about that. Hmm. Yeah, if I put quick and easy web links at the end of a recipe to, if you want to see photos of this, go here. That would be fun. Drive a little traffic to the website, and yeah, that would definitely reduce the costs of having it printed for sure too. I'll look and see if I could figure out the spiral bound ones, but the problem is with that, my mom said that one of her churches did that and then had trouble getting all of them sold. And they're not usually, they're a profit center for the people who print them. So while I can get what I have, when I have author copies I buy from Amazon, I'm getting them at like rock bottom wholesale price. I'm sure Amazon's making a little something, but the ones that I would have to have printed by a printer would still cost me more than just getting a trade paperback done through Amazon. And I don't know on the hardbacks. I would have to do a little research on that. It's a $50 setup fee, so it's not insurmountable. It's made me hesitate with the fiction. I definitely have to look into it for the children's books though, because uh, I think that the children's books, having them in a hard copy edition as well, would be a really nice. They'll be more durable for little hands that way. But okay, I'm definitely going to be looking into the cookbook thing. And yes, Mom, some gardening stuff would probably be fun. Um, I I have way too much. I'm trying to do too much, but that's always the case. It's Work keeps me busy, but not necessarily the brain busy all the time. Sometimes yes, sometimes not so much. And writing fiction is, I can't not. I've tried stopping. Um, so the other things now, the art, I've been doing the art every single day for since about 2014. So 6 or 7 years now. Um, Either every day or very, very close to every day. The past 3 years, it has been every single day, um, which means I have a lot of art. Hello. Most of that art is not particularly usable for anything, but I am by nature a frugal person. And that frugality says, well, I have a resource, I should find a way to use it. And marrying a cookbook and the artwork seems like a good idea. But then again, I sometimes come up with wild and crazy ideas and they never come to fruition. I bought polymer clay the other day to make little tiny teeny dragon sculptures out of, and I haven't even touched it yet. But we'll see. So let's see here. We've talked about books and marketing and gardens, and no, I am not doing a market garden ever again in my life. Um, I do need to consider the next Inktail coloring book. I have the drawings for it. I just need to sit down and lay it out. And that probably also means I need to talk to my collaborator on the children's books because I don't want to schedule too many releases on top of each other. So, yeah, Mom, I'm not going to probably talk about that one too much in public just yet. We'll give it some time, see where things go. Um, it would be nice if I could make a living doing art and books. That is not in the picture right now. And really, when I started doing fiction, it was for a retirement plan. I've been self employed for almost 20 years, 16 years of working, running a family entertainment business, and I was a professional performer. During that time, nothing was set aside for, well, nothing was set aside at all, period. We spent every penny that came in. Didn't go deeply in debt, thank goodness, but that's about the only thing we escaped. So that I have no retirement savings. When I came out of that situation in 2010 and had a writing group that was really encouraging me to consider self-publishing because that was just breaking wide open at that point. I decided that I knew there was no way I could make a living just writing books, especially not as a brand spanky new author. I did not realize how well Pixie Noir and the Pixie trilogy was going to sell. Had that happened before I was as far into college as I was, I might very well have tried to make a living writing. But I was already in college, in student loans, mortgaged my future for this degree, so I was going to finish it and use it. And I did so. The books are my retirement plan. When I retire in whenever that is, I keep saying 20 years, but who knows? When I retire, either because I'm no longer able to work or because I just can't put up with working, I'll have a fairly decent backlist. I'm on the verge of 10 novels. I've got 2 children's books out and a half a dozen more planned for this year. I'll have another 2 novels out later this year. Knock on wood, because, well, they're not written yet, but they're close. And I have some short stories that are happening, at least one anthology that's happening. I think maybe 2 anthologies, we'll see. And of course, these things sometimes pop up organically. I get involved in projects. Um, I'm doing the prompts, and those are kind of fun to keep me going. Yes, so writing I can continue to do even if I were no longer physically able to go out and work a job. I could still keep writing. It would get really difficult if I went blind or something like that. But even then, I could hire somebody to do transcription from dictation. I have been training myself to dictate. It doesn't always work real well to try and transcribe it via software, but Mom can speak to that. She's heard some of my audio generated in the car. It's pretty rough. So I'm not going to blame Dragon, naturally speaking, for not being wanting to transcribe car noise and voice speaking, and discovered just recently that if I'm speaking directly into the handheld recorder, it has a lot of plosives where it's puffing on the speaker. So I'm trying. I have a little cheap lavalier clip-on microphone, and I'm going to see if my recordings from that are better. And speaking of which, Mom, the last 4 recordings that went into the Death World folder were done with that little microphone. I haven't listened to them yet, so we'll see. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to have to invest in a decent cardioid microphone that I can use in the car. So the reason I can't use the one I'm using right now in the car is because it's an XLR. It has a weird pin thing, and I don't think I can hook it up to my little handheld recorder or my phone. Either of those would probably work. That's something to look into too, Ben. Especially if I wanted to just have some for a table at a farmer's market, that might be the way to go. Mom, no worries about it. It's just I'm telling you they're there because I thought of it and I'm kind of talking to you. And a bunch of other people who now know that Mom helps me with transcriptions from time to time. I have debated hiring someone. I know Martin Shoemaker uses a service, and honestly, I don't know. I probably should. I'm just a penny a word for 1,000 word or 100,000 word novel starts to add up, and I'm frugal. It's constant game of how much can I do with the time that I have, because I have not got a lot of time. This hour of chatting was supposed to be a way of kind of connecting with people, and it makes me feel good because I feel like I'm talking to people. There's no good, clean way for me to set this up as actual interaction back and forth with people talking to me and me talking to them like you would face to face. So this is the next best thing. And Jim, Old NFO, he's on YouTube as Old NFO. He does a twice a week chat that's either just him or he has our friend who writes as Law Dog on with him. And they had exciting news. Law Dog is going to be getting his books put back out. They would have been out of print for a little while due to some publisher entanglements. So that's really good to hear because they're excellent books. And I bought African Adventures for my son because it's hilarious. And I want to buy the other book of Law Dog's, his stories of being a policeman, of a sheriff's deputy. And also hilarious, but my son prefers to read in paper, so I need to buy paper copies, and I have ebook copies. Yes, and that's a big part of why I'm doing it, Mom, is because it lets me talk to you and Juniper, and honestly, it's probably part of the reason I'm going to do food videos is because it's not so much a marketing platform as it's just a way to connect with people. And in this time of COVID, I need that. I don't know that I'll be able to make it to a convention again this year. And that's my social life, is going to one or two cons a year. I can't afford to do a whole lot of traveling right now. And with the kid in college, the being able to afford stuff is going to be keeping it on the cheap for the next couple of years at least. So, but it's it's life, and it's worth doing, because if I can get the kid launched with an associate's degree and his high school, then he'll be happy, I'll be happy. He can give the military serious consideration, which right now he's doing. Um, and at that point, I have an empty nest, and I can drag Sanford wherever I want to go. So I'm going to wrap this up here soon. I don't know if anybody had anything else that I was going to talk about, but it's always a fun thing to do, because I start doing it and then I just kind of ramble on and rabbit trails and follow those bunnies down wherever they're going to go. It's kind of like going after the white rabbit down Alice's hole. Oh, speaking of which, Wonderland, which is the novella that I was writing piecemeal from weekly prompts on my blog, is another one. A gaming day in Newark, Ohio. I have got to look up where Newark, Ohio is. I'm not familiar with Ohio enough to be able to just pinpoint that. And my husband is... Ah, my husband informs me that it's above Columbus about an hour, which puts it about 2.5 hours from us. That's drivable. There's supposed to be a really great bookstore in Columbus. I keep meaning to go there, but then COVID. I will be doing some day trips this coming year. Sarah Hoyt and I were talking about it the other day. And the fun thing about day trips is, if you plan them right as a writer, they're research trips and you can write them off. Okay, Ben. So that's not, that's, like I said, it's about 2.5 hours from me. And we occasionally go up into Columbus. There's a Mongolian barbecue place we like up there, although we found one closer to us. It's a chain. And I've been up there a couple of times into Columbus, taking the girls to events. And now, of course, one of the girls lives in Texas, where she's doing quite well. She's a baker. And her sister is living in a town near us, and she's also a baker. They did not plan that, it just happened. But both of them are happy enough with the baking. The daughter that lives close to us does not like the customer-facing part, but she likes the baking part. So trying to encourage her to branch out, reach out of her comfort zone, and apply for a job that doesn't involve people's. Ha! Ben, we should maybe make plans to meet up sometime for Mongolian and bookstore. You did, Mom. So the next Amaya Lombard book will be Bonsai. And it's a play on bonsai trees, but it'll be an anthropologist, a forensic anthropologist, who can speak with hear the stories of bones. And yes, it definitely should set that in Kentucky, and I'm going to have to come up with, I'm sure there's some interesting locations in Kentucky. I'm going to have to come up with something historical, I think, for this one. I have written a few thousand words of it, but I put it on the back burner because my muse So I wrote an introductory post because a friend gave me guest blogging privileges on his website. That's Laughing Wolf. Um, and he's quite a character himself. But he gave me guest posting privileges, and then I was like, I have no idea how to introduce myself. I don't want to do another stiff author interview because I've done a number of those over the years. So I'm just going to introduce my mental squirrels that are hopped up on rippets and pixie sticks. Yes. Oh, yes. Actually, that would be a really good one. So, mom lives in central Kentucky, and one of the roads that's sort of kind of close to where she is, without giving her location away, is called Skinhouse Branch Road, which my girls and somebody else with us immediately decided that that was like the creepiest road name ever. But so that would be a great one for the book. I definitely will have to do something because that's how Possum Creek Massacre happened. Was we drove by, there's a sign for Possum Creek Metro Park. And my daughter, who was riding alongside me, looked at me and said, "Did that sign say Possum Creek Massacre?" And thus was born the story of Amaya Lombard's adventures in Kentucky, and a round barn, which actually is located near Greene, Ohio. It is a real place. It looks like a wedding cake. It's gorgeous. I've gotten to photograph that. Oh, I've been in Yellow Springs and I didn't realize there was a bookstore there. I'll have to check that out. Bookstores, unfortunately, have gotten rarer. There's one down in Covington, Kentucky, just on the other side of the river from Cincinnati. And that little area there that's can't remember the name of the neighborhood right now, but it's kind of German. A lot of German influence in this area for those of you who don't live in Ohio. And there's a nice little bookstore down there. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but we found it walking around with a friend one day. There's also a nice little deli / restaurant right almost under one of the bridges, and it's called the Billy Goat Gruff, and it's surrounded by murals of the three Billy Goats, and there's one in Tip City. That is not far from where I work, so I may have to look up hours and go exploring. The dollar book swap that I was talking about earlier in the cast is in the north side of Dayton on Webster Street, I think, or Stanley. Maybe it's Stanley then Webster. I think it's the Stanley exit and then Webster Street. And it is literally a warehouse. There are no frou-frous, no frills, but they sell CDs, DVDs, and 10,000 plus books that are roughly sorted, but it's definitely a treasure hunt. And everything's $1, so you really can't go wrong with the purchase price there. We usually walk out with a stack of books. I took the kid in there just before we started with the homeschooling to pick up some resources, and we found a lot of history books that he was interested in. Now I need to just nudge him into finishing reading all of those. But yeah, exploring bookstores. I really hope COVID doesn't kill too many of them. There was a bookstore in Kettering called Murphy's Books that I really liked, and their books were reasonably priced, between $2 and $5. And unfortunately, the landlord where they were in, they were in this little strip mall. The landlord jacked their lease up, and they went from barely making it to making, I think they were losing thousands of dollars a day or something ridiculous like that. So they closed. But yeah, definitely. You're ever in the area, give me a shout and I'll point you at some interesting local destinations. There's a museum in downtown Dayton I've been meaning to go to, and need to look and see when their hours are. But it's a Studebaker museum, so lovely old cars. And it's in what used to be an old showroom on the bottom floor of a skyscraper, and it's all Art Deco and glass windows, so you can see some of the cars from the outside. But I'd like to actually go in and check them out a little closer. Um, and of course, Dayton Art Institute is a great little museum here. I first went there as an assignment from school and just fell in love with it, and I haven't been. I need to drag the kid there. So, and of course, the U.S. Air Force Museum, which is huge and getting bigger. They've added some installations outside. I need to go when it's warm because the last time I went, they put in a World War II airfield, basically just like it would have been set up in England in World War II. And the last time we were there, it was cold, and it was off season, so the buildings were closed because they don't heat them. Um, and I walked around the outside but didn't get to go in, and I need to go when it's warm weather and I can go in. And of course, the fact that Johan's extremely interested in World War II means he'll undoubtedly want to go with me, so that'll be fun. But yeah, I mean, I've lived here for 8 years, and there's so many places that I haven't been yet, and I really should figure out little trips and make them. We were doing Johan and I, because he's homeschooled, we were going to do field trips. Well, COVID got everything so locked down that we can't. Oh wow. Well, the Air Force Museum went from 3 hangars to 4 hangars, and added. There's a section. It's like walking through a forest of missiles, like huge ballistic missile things. They're like way up there. I mean, I'm not tall, but even for they're just that's a really awe-inspiring section. That's in the new one. I had the honor and the privilege of getting together with Casey Azell, who's a great author, but she's also an Air Force helicopter pilot. And she and I speed walked the museum because she had a few things she wanted to show me. And she hadn't seen the new facility yet, so she didn't have a lot of time. We got together and we hit it hard. And that was fun. But because I mean, if you go through it leisurely, it'll take at least all day. Johan is thinking about the Air Force. That would be his first choice. His grandfather and his great-grandfather were both Air Force. Had I gone into the military as I fully intended to do, I would have gone into the Air Force. His backup thought is the Army. I don't think he's considered the Navy at all, and he does not have the physical fitness to tackle the Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps is a special challenge that I'm not sure would be a good fit for him. But I think he would probably do really well in the Air Force because he's very interested in a lot of technical things and technological things. One of the things I'm hoping to get him interested in is that the UAS school is at his college. It's not necessarily connected to it, but they literally share a parking garage and some of the facilities. So unmanned aviation is definitely something to think about and would be really interesting. But he's interested in computer science and specifically more in the hardware end of rather than, I mean, he's been learning some programming languages, but he's more interested in the building things and networking things. So we'll have to see where he goes in the next couple of years. He's been pretty hardcore into computer science for the last 4 years, though. UAS is Unmanned Air School, so drones. Well, thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. Yeah, you were part of that conversation, so we'll talk about that one off. Yeah, Space Force is in Colorado. I don't want to go to Colorado, but he could go to Colorado. No, we're not doing Colorado. Sanford just spoke up and said we could do Colorado. No, no, we cannot do Colorado. I want to go somewhere warmer, not colder. Oh my gosh, I have taken up more than an hour of your time. Thank you, all you lovely people, for coming and hanging out with me and letting me talk your ears off. And I will be back next week at the same time unless someone really convincingly argues me into doing a different time. No, same time on Fridays. This works fairly well for me. I'm usually pretty tuckered out at the end of the week, but I can manage talking, which is why I talk instead of doing all blogging these days. So, no, no Florida. I don't want cockroaches big enough the dog can ride them. Mom, you've lived in Florida. Are you sure? I seem to recall a hospital visit for sunburn. Dad was stationed at Homestead Air Force Base, for those of you that are wondering, and I was fairly young back then, like kindergarten age. Well, good night, all, and I will see you next week, and I will catch you on the blog. In the meantime, as far as artwork, I have groups for the art, Cedar Lily Art, on Facebook and MeWe both. Pretty much just mirror post between the two of those, so if you belong to one, you don't need to worry about belonging to both. And yet snakes are an issue for me because I did not grow up with snakes, so I have no snake awareness. But